Our next guest here tells us there's 5 smart ways to spend your money, especially this year for your tax refund, and Tom Stockett knows all about that. From
the average refund this year, $3,000. That's
Woo!
the equivalent of 2 paychecks for the average person out there.
We can get 7 or 8 bags over there for that, right?
I mean, they're beautiful.
But there's probably other things we should be doing with that money also besides buying bags, right?
Absolutely, David. You know, you worked hard for this money. This isn't a bonus. It's not a windfall.
It was yours, they were just holding it.
You got it.
Right.
So you got to think of it that way. Be smart. Try and put together a long-term plan as to how to use this money best.
Okay, so it looks like $3,000 when you first get it, which could buy certain things, but what can you turn that $3,000 into if you're smart?
Well, I've got 5 tips that we'll have some fun here, make it more like a cooking segment instead of a boring financial segment.
There we go.
My 5 tips for the recipe for success with your refund is, first we're going to split it up, then we're going to build it up, then we're going to cut it down, then we're going to stretch it out, and then we're going to pay it forward.
How do we start splitting it up?
So if you've got the determination to be able to take all of your refund and do something good with it, savings, pay down debt, that's great, okay? But let's get realistic here. Let's get a game plan that's going to work for everybody. Let's take a portion of it and splurge a little bit, and let's take the majority of it and work on a long-term goal with it, which brings us into let's build it up.
Okay, what are some of the ways we can build it up if we divide this thing up into 3 or 4 pieces?
The first step to every financial plan is an emergency savings fund. Believe it or not, only 38% of Americans have funds on hand to handle an emergency.
I would call that the deep stash, right?
Exactly.
You hide a little bit away and pretend it's not there just in case.
Exactly. You know, we usually recommend 3 to 6 months of expenses.
Wow.
However, we know that refund's not going to cover that. Yeah. It's a great start. If you already have that taken care of, you can put money towards an IRA or perhaps toward a child or grandchild's college education.
Oh, that's great. Now, so say you're going to do an IRA, is there a special kind of IRA you recommend?
It really depends. You know, there's Roth IRAs and traditional IRAs. You have to check with your tax preparer and your financial advisor to see which one is best for you.
And how about putting away money for child's tuition, future tuition? There are a bunch of ways to do that,
There's
too.
a lot of different ways. Probably the most popular is a Section 529 plan. Once again, check with your tax preparer, your financial advisor as to which plan would be best for you.
What are one of those ideas that everyone thinks it's a pretty good idea, but it ends up being a silly idea, taking money and investing in it when you have small funds like this? I mean, like, it would be like, is real estate a bad idea, or?
Well, it's never, there's no small enough an amount of money to start saving, okay? But once again, we like to get back to the basics, get that emergency fund in place. Once we build that up, then we can move to the next steps. However, moving along here, we build it up first. Now let's cut it down. As important as saving that money is cutting out the debt. So let's knock out those high interest rate credit cards. Don't forget about the mortgage and the car loans, or perhaps even the student loans that are out there as well.
So you start chopping down your debt. And how do you decide which debt to start chopping first?
Let's tackle the credit cards first, especially if they're at a higher interest rate. It's always the best place to start.
I've heard some people talk about, like, if you've got one that you could just sort of knock out, even if it's a couple % lower, just knock it out to get it out of the way and attack this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to give you confidence. You're going to get on a roll, and you'll be able to keep on tackling the other debts. However, let's talk about why are we here in the first place. We're getting this large refund, $3,000 on average. Perhaps it's because we don't have our withholding set up correctly.
Oh, set that up, make it better, right?
Yeah, so if you're not using it for a good use, that money right now, let's maybe just get a little bit more per paycheck. Maybe you can save more money on a monthly basis, or take care of expenses as the year goes on. You can do that through your payroll department in a W-4. We have an IRS calculator on our website at clevelandwealth.com that you can calculate almost exactly the amount of money you need to withhold so that there isn't that lump sum at the end. You're just getting more per paycheck.
And maybe you don't need that credit card. How about that?
Exactly.
Thank you, Tom.
Hey, thanks for having me, David.
Good to see you.
It's always
We have
a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Whole lot more New Day Cleveland coming up right after this.